Hey guys, I'm finally here doing my build video for Omnicells. So I got one build for every weapon I'm going to show you here today. I'm gonna get through these quickly. Naturally, I'm going to start with repeaters first. So until the demod in 4 weeks, we're basically just going to be running whatever barrel we want. Top ones I recommend are going to be the cryo barrel for the extra boot in case your discipline's on cooldown, and dynamic carbine for just flying through stuff as quickly as possible. Full bore is still top DPS. Captain script, naturally, you're never going to need the mine anymore because of the discipline boot. Tac mag is the new meta. Well, not new, but it's the new meta again. Because for a while there, it was Lucky Mag because of the tenacious builds were just so OP for things like escalations. And Tac mag was still best for trials, but precision sights is also still really good for precision builds. So, but for now, 99% of the time I'm gonna be using Tac Mag just because it's so OP. Searing Prism, I believe, is still top tier DPS. I might have to do a little testing, but I'm gonna wait until after the repeater refresh to fully test all these things. Frostbite's naturally gonna be your best burst DPS for through hunting grounds and trying to done. But Searing Prism, I believe, is still overall more DPS. So I'm just going to stick with that for now. Broadside Lantern is still top tier DPS. The only lantern that does more damage is Draskai, but that's only if you're getting a head-to-tail shot. If you're not getting that optimal position, you're doing about half the amount of damage that Broadside Lantern's going to do. So run that for now. I did let the lead combat designer know the issue because, in my opinion, Broadside Lantern should not be doing more damage than Pangar Lantern. And that's if they sit in it for the entire 10 seconds, it still does less damage than Broadside Lantern does, which I think is ridiculous. So hopefully they address that. Conduit is still important. When the demod comes out, I'm definitely going to be putting, I think it's Etheric Attunement on. Yes, Etheric Attunement on to keep that conduit buff up all the time because it's not being able to stay up all the time right now, which is kind of an issue. Let's see, I got Cunning in here, obviously important for repeater crit build. Overpower, still extremely important for repeater builds, especially if you're running solo. And I go over that in my my how to play repeaters videos. You'll see how I go. I think it's in the advanced video on how to really take advantage of part breaks and overpower. And then of course Tenacious should be on every build now. It's the new rage essentially. As far as items, I mean, you can run whatever you want. Just running Blitz pops you up to, I think it's 48% attack speed, which is just under the cap. And that's without even running Catalyst. And some damage if you want. I mean, it really doesn't matter that much. If you want some healing, the best thing to throw on, I believe, is the Vampiric Tonic, or the Life Drain Tonic. It really, follow your dreams. So with that, I'm going to get into my sword build. Now, this is a counter build. It's got the Thundering Blade on here for damage versus Behemoth Tails. So it's kind of hard to counter Behemoth Tails, but a lot of Behemoths with big tails do have tail attacks, namely like Pangar, Hellion, Drask, and so forth. So it's really easy to get that counter damage on that tail against those specific Behemoths. Recursive Hilt, of course, is still my personal favorite. It can do a lot of damage. Avenging Overdrive, naturally. Now, this particular build is a mage build, or at least the closest thing I've tried to get to a mage build. It's got double Lucent on it, so Lucent does give you 50% faster recharge rate. The Catalyst gives you 60% tonic effect with already 125%, which I believe makes it exactly 200%. I think... I might be off, but I think it's exactly 200% faster cooldown rate. And then, of course, Etheric Evasion, which just straight up reduces the cooldown by 35%. That's a flat amount, no matter what percentage you're currently at. And then, of course, etheric attunement, which is another 50%. So between the pot, etheric attunement, and lucent, that's 300% speed. And then, of course, every time you evade, you're knocking a third of it off. So, and then, of course, zeal to buff the lantern so that it does a lot more damage. It's, yeah, 65% more. So, like 5,000, more than almost 6,000 damage, I think. Somewhere around that area. And that's base damage. You know, that scales with your weapon power. So with that in mind, there's other things you could put on here. Like I have pulse on there. I just kind of threw stuff on here. This is not an optimal build. It's a fun build. So just kind of have at it with sword. If you want a really good sword build, check out almost any of these other builds, really. I didn't even equip this on here. Because most of these are going to look almost identical. You're going to see... Why is Rage on here? Jesus Christ. You're going to see almost identical builds on all of these. And... Well, this is a nightmare. I'm going to have to totally remake this build. I thought I had this hammered out. Like here, you're going to see Cunning, you're going to see Overpower, you're going to see Pred, you're going to see Tenacious, and either Berserker or Rage Runner or something else on there that just maximizes your DPS. It's all the same stuff now, and it's kind of sad because I know their intention was to make a wider variety of builds with the Omnicell being released, but all they've did is pigeonhole everybody into running the exact same builds again because of the shield nerf, and it's just kind of sad in my opinion. So I've been kind of mopey about it. And I've just been having less fun with the game because I can't run my shield crit builds anymore because they're trash. So let's go over this real quick. Let's stick on. Wow, this is not even close. I'm just gonna have to totally redo this here real quick. So. With Axe, obviously, you're going to want your big boy damage. Get that second Tenacious in there. I'm going to need a second Cunning. You want the big Axe throws. You want steady damage. And getting steady damage with these builds are kind of hard because the attack speed cap. But you do get a little bit more attack speed base, so that does help. Now, gotta have that 6 pred. I am gonna stick Cascade on here, and I don't stick Cascade on a lot of weapons anymore because I feel like there's just better things to put on most of these builds, like either Zeal for the damage boost on the Lantern, or some extra Lantern speed up ability based on what you're doing. If you have Conduit on, for example, like with my Repeater build, I'm going to love sticking Etheric Attunement on there because it's going to help me keep the Conduit up. But Cascade is important for Axe builds because getting that red Skittle orb on the ground right before an Axe throw is so useful. And the infinite stamina orb is incredibly useful for holding your axe until just the right moment. It's just super, super useful for axe. So that's why I'm running that on there. Overpower naturally, if you can get a part break and then whip an axe on somebody that's down, or get an interrupt with your discipline and then throw an axe right after, is just really satisfying, getting those really big numbers. You know, especially if you got pred up at the time, you know, because you just countered and you just got all those feel-good moments right there all coming together. So, last thing I'm going to stick on here, honestly, for now, I'm just going to stick on Parasitic. I might work into that a little bit later, But axe is also a high risk weapon. You know, it's slow, so you're going to get hit from time to time just because you're committing, and then it's just bad timing. So I'm just going to throw a little parasitic on there. And then that's that build. So let's move on to Warpike, and I am not a Warpike main whatsoever. I know it's really good to run things like acidic and anything that boosts part damage at that point. And there's a lot of fun things to do with Warpike. I am not particularly good at knowing how to optimize those things, because I feel like if you put too much into doing wound damage, your actual damage suffers really hard for it. So for now, I'm just going to show you a pretty standard build. It's got Cunning, Overpower, Pred, Rage Hunter, Tenacious, and 3 Berserker, which is optimal for Berserker in my opinion. And then just a Zeal, just because. So it's just a hard-hitting build that doesn't rely on any weird mechanics. Feel free to spin your blade around a lot. You know, I run Savage Wellspring, so you can get those crits in and take full benefit of that Cunning. I got Munitions Amplifier, so you can stock up early if you need to, and still get the full benefit from the Savage Wellspring. And I just run this for, well, 1 for the Overpower and 2 for the extra blaze damage. Never hurts. I know it's pretty much optimal to run Ember Pike for wound builds, so feel free to do that if you want to run a wound build. It's simple. You can just run out there, get easy boops, and do some heavy damage without having to rely on weird stuff. This is my bonus build, my 1 Bastion build, and I hate this build so much. This is what I wanted to use when I first heard about Omnicells and Bastion. I wanted to use this build. I was like, this is cool, it's going to be another new way to do shield crit builds. And this is just the best way to do it, and your damage is going to be significantly lower than the Discipline build. But here it is. You know, you got your Fullborn, your Captain, and your attack magazine, of course, still, but you're running Stoneheart Prism, max 600 shields, big whoop. You got the Skarn, Lantern, of course, another max 600 shield, big whoop. And Bastion, which is another 500, big whoop. So in total, you should never be going over 2,000 unless you're running like a bunch of shield amps from escalations, or frost escalation with the shield avatar or something. It's got Etheric Attunement and Conduit on it, just to get the shields generating faster. And other than that, it's all crit stuff. It's got Cunning and Galvanized, the crit abilities. So, I mean, you're never going to get more than like 30-something% bonus on critical strike chance from that Galvanized, which is a little sad. And then Tenacious, just because it's, you know, you should be in effect 100% of the time since you have all those shields up. I do not recommend using the Shield Slam on this build, because you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot with all that critical hit chance. I mean, unless you know the behemoth's about to die, then go for it. You know, get your killing blow. So I'm going to jump into this Striker build here. Very little difference from my old Striker build. It's still running Titan's Crash, Cyclonic Strike Plate, which did get nerfed, but it's still really good. And Thundering Bolts, of course, for bonus damage to the head. Very important. You know, I'm still running Broadside. I do run Cascade in this. It's, you know, this actually could be swapped out for something else if you wanted. It's not optimal. I do not like running +3 Conduit, because if I want to run the build in a group, I could be nerfing somebody else's Conduit. And most of these other things aren't going to have any other effect other than like maybe Zeal. So that's really up to you. This is a solo build, so I run Knockout King just because it makes the speed run that much faster usually. Getting those fast claps off really staggers them really quickly. So especially if you're getting that dodge through before the clap, you're just going to knock them down instantly. It's pretty bonkers. Overpower, of course, to take full advantage of the part breaks and the Knockout King and the staggers. Pred, because honestly they should be constantly being knocked down. You know, if you're just, you know, flying through running stuff. Tenacious, Obvious, Etheric Attunements from the Bond, and Cascade from the Lantern. So not a very complex build. Lots of collapse. That's the goal there. I do recommend using pots for this build. The stagger damage helps immensely. The attack speed helps immensely since there's very little on the build. Frenzy Tonic isn't really needed, but you can run that if you want. And final build, actually this isn't my final. Forgot I got I hate chain blades. I really do. But I'm gonna go through this anyway. You know, you got Overpower, which is important, of course. Momentum Blades is my personal favorite. I like it better than Serrated, but if you're a Serrated person, go for it. Obviously, you want to use Reaper Stance. Get your 10 stacks. This whole build is based on just getting 10 stacks and then slamming. It's got Conduit, so you can, you know, build up stacks a little faster. Just go nuts with this thing. Just like, you know, make sure you get your full Berserker stacks before you do your 10 stack. If you have to, do a light, heavy, heavy, light combo just to build up those stacks really quick and then do that slam. The extra damage is totally worth it for that extra couple seconds you're going to spend doing that. And that's about all I want to talk about Chain Blades for, so let's move on. Hammer. I really wish I was better at Hammer. I really do. It's an awesome weapon. It does batshit crazy damage, and it is, in my opinion, probably the hardest weapon in the game to use because of how slow it is. You really have to telegraph your moves ahead of time. You really have to expect the behemoth to do certain things. You have to know the AI down to a T, or how to bait AI against every behemoth. But for this build, I'm just going to show you the Conduit and the Etheric Attunement for the attack speed, which is extremely important for Hammer, and Concussive Salvo, of course, for boops and a large amount of damage. Extended Clip, which is the best in my opinion for just doing more damage. And then Thundering Maul, again, more damage to the head, which is where all your stagger damage comes from, so you're going to want to be hitting them in the head anyway, so why not do 30% more damage? And then it gives us also that Etheric Attunement bond, which helps keeping that Conduit up. So of course I got the other Etheric Attunement cell in the Lantern, and Broadside for damage. I got Knockout King on this because this is a solo run build. I typically only do these solo. Sometimes I'll do them with groups, and Knockout King is still good, but I feel like it's definitely most effective in solo builds. So if you want to make a group build for this, I would recommend taking out Knockout King. That's just kind of my preference there. And then of course Cunning is always top tier. Overpower is top tier, especially for knockout builds. And Tenacious, of course, is again in every freaking build. So those are my 7 builds plus 1 bonus build. And hopefully you learned something today. If not, feel free to drop me a question in the comments. I try to answer all of them. And I will catch you guys later.